when you look and you see how ironic everything is around the whole construction of this um, world civilization, if you think how ironic really is, all we have to do is, you know, you don't even have to go all the way back in history, but you can go 700, 800, 1,000 years ago, and you can see um, how the forces of this planet go. And you have to take away the mask of the narrative that the world has given you. You know, and it's not just America, it's the entire world has given the normal people a narrative, story, how things happen, and how they must continue to be. And then you can really identify, you know, the poisonous snakes growing in the woods. You know, the woods being the world. I mean, you have to think, I mean, if you get back into, you know, the kingdoms, let's say United Kingdoms, because there's still kingdoms. I know they hide, you know, they're going to show you so much, only the Queen of England, but there's many queens and kings out there. Spain, France, um, Great Britain, Germany, all of those places, they have kings. Remember, in Russia, they used to be the stars. So what are those? Those Caesars, those are emperors. And now what they have done in the last 100 years is transform everything. You know, I don't know exactly, but from what I can see in history in the last 100 years, things have been transformed around the world. You know, now you have prime minister, you know, but you have the Queen of England in the monetary denominations like in Canada, you know. Trudeau is not the boss of Canada, right? He's the prime minister. Okay, so we're not going to look at the definition of prime minister at the moment. I'm not going to do that. But most of us know what a prime minister is when there's a queen or a king behind it. You know, these are monarchs, and they haven't gone away. And that's why they want to make the world believe that they're gone. But we see it all in place. You know, we see it in Saudi Arabia. We see it in Middle Eastern countries and all of those China. You know, all of the Japan. Remember, where did they go? Yeah, they sat together and created, you know, corporations who can do business with other countries in the name of a representative, and that's what we have today around the world. But those royal families are still they still control what most matters to them, the monetary system. Because who else is going to own the bank if it's not, you know, king or queen? I mean, remember, they took all the gold. You couldn't own gold unless you were the royal family. You know, the chips and nuggets that they give their politician, their politicians to work for them. Remember? But things haven't changed. I mean, terminology has changed. I mean, they have a new model now. It's like a modern model of government, you know. But the real true rulers, they stay behind the screen because they don't want to cause any problem. They don't want to create any heat. I mean, the world gotten so large. That's why many of them have had concern about how many people are in the world and have thoughts about eliminating, 1 or 2 billion just to keep the population down. I mean, you have to be insane, excited about it. But yeah, don't be surprised. Not accusing anybody, but I know. We know. We all know. So, and then you have to think that um, those kings and queens, kingdom, how do they really got into so much power financially? We don't have to do a lot of history looking if we just open up our eyes and see through the mask and see it for what it is, and name it. Those kingdoms made their wealth on slavery. On slavery. The king got power, or czar, or Caesar, by invading other countries, ripping and looting their wealth, making them theirs, kill all the able men who were fighting against them, to keep the little children and the women, make them slaves. This is the way of the world. We all know it. This is what happened. I mean, we can do whatever we want. We can bury our heads in the sand, but this is how kingdom made wealth. So when America here, United States of America started, how do they make wealth? Slavery. I mean, they knew that's where they came from. They had good lessons. Hey, you want to have wealth? Yeah, but get free labor. Well, that's a good idea. Oh, shit, where are we going to get it? Well, I mean, we depleted the Caribbean islands, so the natives of those places are mostly gone, or isolated somewhere. We can go Negroes from Africa. Oh, good idea. They are right by the Mediterranean. So, could be easy. Crossing to America. Yeah. Okay, so this is not a secret. This is history. This is not a conspiracy. This is history. This is facts. So, imagine how many laws have been put in place around the world that is directly aimed at people of, let's say, last 1,000 years slavery descent. I know it's longer than that. But the people from that region, that continent of Africa have been blundered through the ages with wars to take their wealth and their people as slaves. That's history. Now, I'm not here to give you a history lesson. I'm just trying to, help you connect the dots. How many laws were placed? Remember here in America that, yeah, slavery was the beginning, okay? And then they had to let the people go, but they didn't want to really do that. I mean, obviously, there was war, right? They call it a revolution. They call it a revolution. There was a war, not to allow these people to go free. In many states, they threatened to go away and go away from the federal government and be themselves so they can have slaves because then they would make their own law. I mean, think about this. So, um, think about who benefits today because remember it was all for material benefit that they kept people slaves for material benefit. And I'm not talking about like I don't want to make this a race thing, although it is, but it's not. This is because there's so many people who have um, European descent who were also slaves in here and still are. You understand? So you have to look at what you can call the rulers of things or the monetary system. Who rules the federal government? If you think about that, I don't know. I mean, there's a big mess in it. So whoever benefits from everything you can produce, those are the rulers. Because they rule the financial system. And this is why they own the communication system and religion so they can contain the masses under their spell. I mean, how are you going to do it if you let them go, but you don't want to let go of your way of life, which is slavery? Then how do you keep them slaves without having to contain them in a plantation? Because, I mean, so how do you do that? Well, you create law. Oh, like legal laws? Yes. That is aimed at them, and then what you do is also you aim the forces at them. You put them in big cities, and then you have extra man, military force in the street, called the police, and then they target people who live in those areas who are slavery descent. That's a good plan. Yeah. Many people will say, well, that's conspiracy theories. Okay. Do the math. Do the algebra. Add the points together. Because now you have plenty of time when you can just seek facts. Because you're not talking about what might happen in the future. That's fiction. But we can look at what took place before and what is like it now. And then you can see that everything adds up when you do the math. Everything adds up. So now you can make a conscientious decision about your life and about your programming, because they give you a programming, because you can't contain the body. So you program the mind so that because you know the body's going to do whatever the mind tells it to do. So what do? Well, you program the children. You know, you blunder the youth that are strong. They have to get, labor jobs, physical, or else they'll die. They don't know how to read. I mean, there's a few out there, but the majority of them, no. So what are they going to do? Well, you create low income housing for them. hmm That's a good idea. Now you can patrol those low income houses, get them in trouble for whatever they do. I mean, little kids in other areas, I mean, they are free to roam around all over town, motorcycles and whatever they want. No one's gonna bother them in this area. It's like a hunting ground, you know. And bacon is great for some of these youth out here, to have things that they can't really afford. But if they look like they can't afford it, it looks like they are successful. I mean, the psychological reaction to a post-dramatic slavery syndrome. I mean, I don't have to be a psychiatrist, psychologist to be able to just put these things together. But we know that the things that take place genetically affects the being, the human being. If you are placed in a lot of fear, your genes change. And science already have proven that. If you live in fear, your genes change. So if your genes change, your offspring genes are going to be rearranged. I mean, you're taking two human beings that genes have changed and not exactly to the same level of fear, but they have changed. Now you're putting them together and you're creating a child, so you don't know what to expect. So that's a perfect opportunity. You know why? Because the Negro don't know that. But we do. And what do we want to do? Control them. So how do you control them? Well, if you control the gene, then you control the offspring. And then if you educate them, according to our means, then we got it. Yes, that's genius. I admit that's genius. Yes, I know it affects me, my offspring, and my ancestors. So once you understand that and analyze that, then you can begin to repair. How do you repair? You repair with truth. You take a look at the effect. What happened in the past, and then you can look at a later effect from a cause, because the cause creates effects. It's like a domino effect, but the domino effect was created by a cause. Without a cause, there is no effect, because the effect is the outcome of the cause. It's one of the laws. The law of cause and effect, called the seven Hermetic laws. So they knew what was going to happen. So they arranged what? A chain of communication. A chain of communication, a chain of religion, and a chain of education. And what do? Well, you train them. In reality, I know we talk about, communist country, how they train little children from when they're little to be militant, but we do too. We do too, in a masqueraded way. I mean, isn't it an institution? Everybody is with uniform. Who has uniform? The army. People who are in a project. What does a project mean? Well, um, it's a plan. A project is the outcome of a plan, something that's being put together in place. I mean, we don't have to be geniuses to analyze and see this as we get older and we gain experience and we watch things and then we investigate the past and then we see the now and then we can put it all together. We had enough time. We had enough time. This is where we grow a conscious now. I mean, think about it. It's the perfect plan. And then if you look at today, NATO, the United Nations, is countries who had slaves. Yeah. Just the people who banded together. Yeah. Most of this country, all of this country has slaves, even through the Caribbean. What the fuck? Spain was in the Caribbean. Spain was in here, in South America. They came here and they had slaves and they brought slaves from Africa and they took the people who were natives as slaves when they didn't have enough or they couldn't really control them. They went to Africa. And that's what we get the Latino. There's no such a thing as Latino. The fuck is that? Latino come from Latin. That's since when a language can be a race. Language can be racist. That's being racist. When they call you Latino, that's being racist. Because a language is not a race. Because races come from genes. Language comes from the alphabet. How could you mix them together? Unless you train them to be that. Whatever you want. Whatever name you come up with. And then you say it. You decree it. And then that's what people are. Blacks, Latinos, Asians. It isn't just people. There's laws here in this universe. We live in a planetary system. We live in space. There's laws here. Imagine if we live in space, there must be laws that are keeping us here feeling as if nothing is moving. Yet we're spinning fast. And we see all nature in this planet. And we see animals and birds. We look at the trees. They don't seem to move. Yeah, they're moving. So think about it. Science already told us that there's something behind everything we see. People really, we have really created a culture that is really detrimental to humanity. People have questions such as, do you believe in superstition? Like, really? We really have done nothing to educate the people of mean, the job of education to the world, and I'm not talking about the very royal family. They have some special type of education. You know, keep the reins, hold the kingdom together from behind the scenes. Okay, I mean I understand their part. You know, they have a business. They want to keep it. Um, but if you really think about really regular people, what you call regular people, the masses, how effective they have been through education. And those who do not understand their education get in trouble. With what? Law. So, right there, you can say, okay, these laws were created by who? My ex or former or current masters. I mean, it's a beautiful thing when you can uh, see with your eyes closed. You know, some cannot understand it yet because they're not at that place. So they can, you know, these things you would, because there's also fear. Like, how could you do that and I can't? You know, and they get frustrated. They say, you know what, I don't believe in that. You know? So I say that believe is a tough word, it's a compound word. It's be and live. So you said it all right there. If you say you don't, I don't believe in that, you're saying I am not that and I don't live that. Okay, I totally understand it. You see, once we have proper communication skills, then we can really fix. I wouldn't say fix the world. I would say we can really create a better one slowly. And we can. I believe we are ready to have a world where we are our own masters. You know, but we have to be well behaved, and that behavior comes from understanding. We're not gonna have understanding as long as the education is garbage. I mean, you graduate from high school, what do you know? Well, you could be trained on a machine to punch number on a keyboard and check out groceries. What else can you do? What? I don't have what the what? What the you just wait? What? You spend 12, 13 years in the educational system, and all you can do is labor or um, low end services, which is, you know, at the end of the day, labor as well. Because who can stand for 8 hours in front of a registry, sometimes 10, every single day to make a living? Imagine what it's going to do to your posture, to your posture, to your legs, your feet. Think about that. Think about the kind of education you have. I mean, children come out of high school and they don't know how to fry eggs. They don't know anything about alimentation. They're being fed trash, like the educational system. Frozen pizzas, frozen burgers, you know, canned goods. Like, really? think that you are going to have a healthy plant if you don't fertilize it with good, good stuff. So, and then you hear news that, oh, Bayer is working onto buying Monsanto. Oh, think about what most people eat. Because when you control the television, you can tell people what to eat. And that is part of healthy breakfast. Kellogg's. The fuck is that? How in the world are you going to brainwash the people that eating a bunch of color and syrup, high fructose syrup in cereal is part of a healthy breakfast? Mixed with milk that is way beyond the limit of, pesticides and hormones. I mean, that is actually nuclear waste. Right at the end of it, a very thin line, and they are telling you on television to feed it to your children. And you go to school, and they are feeding it to your children, and we become accustomed to that because it's a new fad, it's a new way. I mean, the commercial was done with a lot of color, and with this cartoon, you can do whatever you want. I mean, Walt Disney he was the master. Oh, he was a master mason, by the way. So that's part of our educational system. The television is part of our educational system. It's programming the mind. That's why they call it television programming. So if we are a free range of that, and you control that, and you deviously, because you can see, when you can see, is deviously programming these children to be materialistic, to be hateful, and to be belligerents at the same time. You see cartoons where cartoons is like ponies in there, and they are talking, which is another devious kind of way to kind of manipulate the minds of the children. They go into a war because somebody likes this horse and this one is not liked. You can see these things going on in this cartoon. You feel like, wow, these are little devils right here, painted with cute little colors and funny little things and outfit looking things. We need to really examine that because television, cartoons educate our children, and then commercials educate our children, and then they shows that they watch when they're teenagers. That's educating them. That's why they have that culture and the music and everything else. That is our education.